Are you ready to listen to my dad Joe and Uncle Justin talk about sports?
The Joe Mays and J-Raff Show is brought to you by Mays Sandwich Shop, which have been serving the greater West Lawn area delicious food for over 70 years. You are listening to the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show,
Boring.
a weekly podcast about sports since 2011,
Don't you ever get tired of being wrong all the time?
with a focus on football.
Second and goal. Stop. This guy has had some years.
Al, I've got to tell you, in a pressure situation, I don't know if I have ever seen anybody be better than Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp. Wow, what a drive.
4th and 1. Burrow trying to keep it down. Gets it away. Incomplete. Rams down. Running down to celebrate with a defensive play.
And guess who?
Of course,
I mean, you don't even have to think about it.
pointing to the ring finger.
When everything was on the line for the Rams, yes, we know it was Aaron Donald.
But the Rams were built to win the Super Bowl, and they have sealed the deal.
Now, here are your hosts, Joe Mays and Justin Raffoff. Have we forgotten how to do this, Justin?
It's been a while.
It has been a
while.
long time. A long time. So I think the last time we did this show together was maybe June? 5 months?
Yeah, I can't believe we haven't seen each other since.
I
then.
can't believe it's been that long since I've seen you. So how you been? Was it a good summer?
Pretty good. Yeah,
Good
it
fall?
was good. It was good. Yeah, I think things were good.
So the last show we did here, well, the last time this show aired, episode 362, back on July 31st, but you weren't here. It was,
I was not. I was at the beach.
Paul Roberts filling in, talking NFL. Was the end of our NFL preview. So we're back here a good, 4 months later, nearly?
Mm-hmm.
We're 11 weeks almost into the NFL season now.
Which is crazy.
We can revisit our predictions.
Yeah.
But no, obviously anyone that follows our lives knows that we've seen each other a bunch over the last few months on the other show,
Yes.
on the Bulldog Hour, which is our high school football podcast focusing on the Wilson West Lawn Bulldogs here in Berks County, Pennsylvania. That was a lot of fun. We did really 16 straight shows. We did 2 off-season shows and then dove right in with episode 3 of season 8 of the Bulldog Hour, and we rolled right through August, September, October, and into November with that show. Had a lot of fun. Paul Roberts guested on that, as well as Mike Drago and Jeff Reinhart, local Lancaster, Lebanon, Berks writers. Appreciate all of them taking the time to join us. We kicked off the show way back in February of this year with Jim Berkman from Spotlight on Berks. Had a lot of good discussions. Great time talking Wilson Bulldogs football and, just Berks County football in general. But we're back now to talk about the big boys and the National Football League. And we are excited to give our take on the NFL season to date because we've missed a bunch. A lot has happened since we last did our predictions in June and July.
Yeah, a lot has happened. And, so far, plenty that we actually want to talk about in the NFL. Like you and I will talk NFL all the time, no matter what. But a lot of times, over the years, it's just like venting.
Right.
Not to say that there hasn't been any of that, but there's also been plenty of all right, we'll take this, which again, we'll take as much of that as we can get, right? So, it was good. Plenty of NFL stuff to take place. I know we mostly talk NFL, but there's, the college stuff. It's crazy. Like only 1 week left in the regular season of NFL or college football.
Really?
It's crazy, But yeah, it's that time of year. They're getting, other than July, this is like one of the best times of the year. coming into it.
You and your
So-
July.
So
Oh,
yeah,
gosh. Everyone knows that July is just like the worst month
Well,
of the
and-
year.
and I know that people like your dad are just chomping at the bit
I
for
know
us
you're
to
about
do
to
a whole show on the World Cup.
I knew you were about to say. I knew what you were gonna say. Yeah, this is our World Cup preview. I have nothing to say about that other than I wish
I did enter a World Cup contest.
Of course
so,
you did.
Yeah.
I do hope that the Americans have a good showing. They didn't get to compete 4 years ago, I believe. They didn't even make
I'm
the
not
field.
sure they have in the last two. I'm
Well,
not
they
sure.
missed the last two. I know they competed. No, they competed in 2014.
Okay, I got it mixed up. I have it mixed up
You're
with
thinking
one of
about
the
Olympics, yeah.
Which the Olympic stuff is weird too, though. But
All of it is weird. It's all weird. Like I can't keep track of how they do qualifications for Olympics and World Cups.
well, if anybody,
To be fair, I have very little interest in knowing how they do it. But an outsider perspective, very layman,
all you need to know,
I have no idea.
All you need to know is FIFA runs the show.
Oh, well, there's your problem. There's your problem. I mean, you said it perfectly the other day when you said FIFA is the perfect example of being governmented.
right. It's like the caricature of government.
I just love how it's just an even worse version of the IOC. Like, everyone's like, the Olympics are so corrupt, and FIFA's like, hold my beer.
Right. I feel like there's still a decent amount where the IOC like tries to get it right. I think FIFA's just like
Tries.
right. Well, it's all relative. Compared to FIFA, I feel like they try to get
Right.
it right.
There's
FIFA's just like, this is the way we do it. You can say what you want, but we're done. I mean, you can even put the guy on TV and he says, I'm defending injustice.
Oh, boy.
I'm assuming he misspoke, but like we'll take him at his word.
Oh, boy. Yeah, an attempt was made, huh?
Yeah.
That's
So
about
anyway,
it. So
yes,
that's our World
yes,
Cup
yes.
preview. Go USA.
Right.
Quasi local Christian Pulisic
Yeah.
on the team. He's like the big name too, the one that
Yeah,
everyone pulled
yeah.
for. Hershey area, I
Yes,
believe.
yep.
Did you see the things going around from the banners?
Yeah.
From Ted Lasso.
Yeah, that's
Coach,
awesome.
Coach Beard, the alter ego, putting those up, and there was one on a barn. I think it was a barn outside of Hershey.
outside of Hershey. Yep.
Very cool.
Going around in the hometowns. Yeah, it's cool.
It's a cool idea. And
So-
I do wish them the best. I have nothing
and
against
just
them
like
for any reason.
just like anything else, it gets with success. It gets exciting. Like it gets exciting to see, and hopefully they can make a run. I'm not saying they'll make a run at a World Cup. Like I don't think
Yeah.
we're quite there, but like they need. In reality, they need to advance out of the group stage.
Right,
which
quarterfinals. I
they
think
have a
would be
shot.
nice.
They have a shot, but you never know. Need to start with the win tomorrow. They start against Wales tomorrow. You need to win that one because you look at it. That's one of the teams we need to be ahead of. At the end of the group stage, that's one of the teams we need to be
Right.
ahead of.
It would be nice to see him make the quarterfinals, like be part of
Yeah.
that final 8,
Yeah.
that group of 8. It would be I think that would be a big accomplishment.
Right. To get to a point where you lose to a team that is quote unquote just better than us, as opposed to a team like I feel like we should beat. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So we'll see though, because you never know.
I have very little history with the World Cup. Honestly, I don't believe I can remember anything from any World Cup other than 2006 and 2014. 2006, I was in college, so like there was a lot of college friends and acquaintances, people around the apartment that wanted to watch it. And I believe that was one. Was it Italy and France? And it was like
think so.
the Zidane, the headbutt
Yes, the
or
headbutt
whatever.
one,
Yeah.
yes,
So I
yes.
remember that one. Obviously, U.S. Wasn't in the final. It wasn't good enough to be part of that gang. They played in it. They participated. Then 2014, I remember getting behind it, probably because of you, because I don't know why else I would have cared that much.
I drew you in.
But honestly, I think they ended up not doing as well as people thought they would do in
That's
2014.
Probably accurate.
And then they didn't get to participate in the last one.
Right.
And obviously, we all remember the Women's World Cup that the U.S. hosted
Right.
in the 90s that got everyone excited about. And the women have done very, very well. And it's always the year after the men's, right? It's always the year after. Is it
yeah.
the same thing for Qatar here?
Well, it is, but it's less than a year because they offset it from June to now because they'd rather play in the 100-degree heat than the
So they're playing in-
125-degree heat.
Oh, but when are the women playing?
I think this coming year.
Right. But like next fall, they're not going to play in the summer like they normally.
Oh,
would.
I don't know if it's there.
Is it not there? I
I
thought
don't-
they
I
just
don't-
followed up. Is it not?
I don't think so.
Oh,
I
okay.
think it's a different site.
See, this I'm showing my.
I don't know though. I don't know that like
Okay.
for a fact, but I think it's a different site.
I guess I just thought they were using the same facilities, but I guess
I
that's
don't
not how
think
it
so.
happens.
I feel like that would be very interesting given the scenario. Like even more interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's
Yeah.
move off of this topic before things
Your
really.
dad's already turned it off.
He's like, I'm not paying to watch this crap.
All right.
Soccer. No,
Oh my gosh.
but I mean, good luck to the men's national
Yeah,
team. I
Hope they win.
I hope they that game tomorrow.
Tomorrow
against
too.
Wales.
Yep. Which I
Um,
like because if we were to make it out of the group stage, having early games in the group stage means I think that there's a little less time or a little more time between your last group game and your next round game.
Well, I could have said that at 2:00 on a Monday afternoon. I can't think there'd be anything that would be more important to me than a men's World Cup game. And then Navy Athletics decided to say they were unveiling their Army Navy game uniform at 2:00 tomorrow afternoon. So I'm not sure. I'm honestly, I saw some people not giving them flack, but asking like, is that really happening at the same time as the game? So I don't know how much they care about that. I don't know if they'll be. I don't want to call it damage control because
Honestly,
it was just a little oversight if you even consider it that.
I feel like it might be a great time because I feel like social media is going to be flooded with people.
It's true.
And
so you get people to retweet it, and others are going
Right.
to see it.
and it's going to be like in the general Go USA theme. Like I feel like it fits. Like I don't know. I don't feel like it's going to take away. I don't feel like anyone's going to be like, oh man, I wish there was more soccer stuff on my feed, but the Navy uniform stuff is taking it all up. And I don't feel like people looking for Navy uniform stuff are probably going to be over inundated with soccer stuff. I don't know.
So I don't know. It's supposed to be 2:00 tomorrow.
Right.
I'm very anxious for this because I don't know if we've said this on the show. If we did, it
don't
was
know.
on this show 5 months ago,
Right.
probably. But Justin and I, along with Jamie and my dad, are going to the Army Navy game on December 10th in Philadelphia. It's the last time it's in Philly for like 5 years.
Yeah, for a while.
So we wanted to make sure we got in there. We were supposed to go years ago. It didn't work out. Then the COVID obviously threw a wrench into so many things. But here we are in 2022 now. Philadelphia, December 10th. We are going to the game. We have our tickets,
Yeah.
which is exciting. But tomorrow, Navy is unveiling the uniform. And I've loved everything they've done over the last like 12 to 15 years that they've been doing this. I'm just anxious that I won't like it as much and I'll be disappointed, especially if I love the Army uniforms. So I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm going to like it because I've liked everything they've done to date. But it's one of those things, I don't want to go to the game where I'm not a fan of the uniforms, but I'll take it. I don't want to sound ungrateful because I'm super excited to go to the game.
They're just replicas of the men's soccer uniforms.
Oh man, what if it did have a World Cup theme to it? Because it's happening. I mean, they're announcing it the first U.S. game, and then the Army Navy game is a week before the championship, right? Because isn't the championship isn't it on my birthday, the 18th? The World Cup final.
I think it is.
Yeah.
I think it is.
So
I thought you meant the Army Navy game. I'm like, no.
No.
Like, I
the
know.
Army Navy
that's-
game is on the 10th,
right.
but the World Cup
Um,
final, the championship game
yes,
is, I believe,
yes,
on
I
Sunday
believe
the
it is.
18th.
Speaking of Navy, big win yesterday for them.
Yeah, upsetting UCF, right? Top 20
ranked
team.
UCF.
Yeah.
Right.
Through a wrench
Ranked
into
UCF,
the,
who's going to their conference championship game.
threw a wrench into the possibly the group of 5 bowl representative in the New Year's Six because
Yeah.
now Tulane can sneak in there. I hope they
Right.
do. I'd love to see Tulane in there. It's an underrated uniform set right there.
Yes,
when
it
they
is.
roll out
With
all
that
the all
wave.
white and that fighting wave. It's awesome.
Yes.
That mini helmet is on my short list of ones to add
That's
to
a
the
cool one. That's
collection.
cool.
So
That logo of the fighting wave
Yes.
reminds me of Columbia.
Yeah.
There's a fighting wave painted on the gym wall. Like, I really like that.
all awesome. It comes full circle.
Yeah.
All right, so let's, I guess, quick do our little housekeeping here and thank our presenting sponsor, May's Sandwich Shop.
Who's already
My
tuned out
dad,
because of the soccer.
he did.
talk,
He
but-
texted me like 10 minutes ago. He's like, if you're talking World Cup, I'm out. So, too bad. Thanks for joining us for a bit, Dad. But thank you for your support as always. The men's national team thanks you for your support
Right,
as
right.
well. But we're gonna talk football now, and that's all it's gonna be. I guess real quick, Penn State 9-2.
Yeah.
One game left, one more win, double-digit wins, most likely going to a New Year's Six bowl. I guess I'd be surprised that they would pass over a 10-2 Penn State team that's rolling.
Nothing would surprise me.
Well,
But like,
you look at the AP poll and you can just roll your eyes.
right. But like, I also look at, there are some things that could help Penn State, like definitely get in there, including.
We need chaos in the Pac-12. That's what we need.
And USC plays Notre Dame this week, which I saw a lot of Penn State fans
Go Notre Dame.
lamenting over that exact fact. Yes, it would help. It would help Penn State's Rose Bowl specifically bid if USC loses.
But see, USC's up to 5, even if they lose to Notre Dame, who then will move to 9-3. USC's not dropping below Penn State.
No,
I can't. I mean, unless they get blown out.
But what they're looking is to get 2 Big Ten teams into the playoff.
Oh,
so if you get 2 Big Ten teams in the playoff, then Penn State could go to the Rose Bowl, not just
against USC.
Probably, yeah.
Unless they would also lose the Pac-12 championship,
right?
To
which
who would
how
that
about
be against?
The Pac-12 gets a lot wrong. The idea of gone away with divisions and we're just picking the top 2, like we're picking the best 2 for our conference championship game.
What a novel concept!
It's pretty awesome. Although imagine if Ohio State, Michigan played this week, and then it's like, yep, run it back. We're playing again next week.
Yeah.
But that aside, how crazy is it that you're going to have the Big Ten championship be like Ohio State or Michigan against Iowa?
8-5 Iowa or 7-5 Iowa or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Obviously, they need to move away from that, and they're working on it. It's not going to happen next year.
Right.
But it will happen. In 2 years, I guess.
Yeah, in 2024, when they have to figure it out because USC and UCLA come in.
Yeah. All right. So I was trying to see if I could pull up the game to watch while we play this because the Chiefs and Chargers are playing right now. But it's giving me some issues, so we'll check back on that. But yeah, Penn State, before we move on, hopefully moving to 10-2 with a home win this Saturday against Michigan State, 4:00. Are you going?
I'm planning on going.
You're
Haven't figured out the plans yet.
Okay.
Weather looks not so great. But
Well, yeah, they had been calling possibly for snow. Now it looks like it's just going to be cold rain.
yeah,
So
wonderful.
great.
So have to figure that part out yet. But yes, the potential will be going up.
But I mean, I know people are going to be disappointed at 10-2 because those 2 are Michigan and Ohio State.
Right.
But entering the year, we were talking 8-4, 9-3. So if you go 10-2, you have surpassed expectations.
And I talk to people. I'm like, look, I know 10-2 and third best team in the Big Ten is not the ultimate goal for Penn State in general. Like I understand that. However, I think everyone would agree that is a step above where we've been the last 2 years. And so in a path to get back, like, depending on how you want to look at it, to the level where you want to be, 10-2 is a step in the right direction, right? 10-2, New Year's Six contender, is a step in the right direction from where we've been the last 2 years. And like, okay, you know, you're doing what you need to do. You do that. You get some positive momentum going. You've seen a lot from some of the young guys this year, which is exciting.
Right.
You've got some things you need to address and get more production in some areas, but you've had some guys be, pleasant surprises in some others and some contributing earlier than maybe a lot of people thought. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see, but I feel like you've got some momentum to build, and hopefully you can continue to build some momentum into the December signing day. And then you get some more early enrollees. Some of the early enrollees have done really well this year, like Nick Singleton.
Right.
So, yeah, we'll see. Like 10-2 again. It is weird because like you lost to the 2 best teams you played, but I think they're better than a lot of teams would give them credit, especially at full strength. I think they're better than a lot of college football teams. And I heard this morning, and it was a really good point. I hadn't honestly thought about it for a couple of weeks. We talk about the what ifs with the 12 game or the 12 team playoff scenarios, but like in terms of, somebody was like, they feel like this year is one of the best like advertisements or arguments for one of the best arguments for a 12-team playoff, because they're like, there is not a like single runaway dominant team. Like
Right.
even Georgia, who in my opinion is the clear number one right now,
Yeah,
has been pushed by a few different teams, but arguably not pushed by the best team they've played
Right.
in theory by ranking, which was Tennessee. Yeah, so it's just weird, you know. But like they Kent State hung around longer than you would expect against the number one team in the country. Kentucky was a weird game, and they didn't really blow them out like you would think, considering how bad Kentucky's offensive line is. Like, there's just lots of things like that. And basically the way he phrased it was, you don't look at this year and be like, oh, the championship, no matter what the playoff ends up being seeding-wise, the championship's going to be Georgia and whoever, or any two teams. Like, he's
Right.
like, we've had years where it has been like that. Like, it felt like, oh, it doesn't really matter. We're going to end up with an Alabama-Clemson final. You know, like, there's been years where you could just tell that's how it's
neither
going
of
to end
those
up.
teams might make the playoffs.
Right.
So I'm
And
okay with that.
And so now you look at it, they're like, you don't have that feeling at all. And so he's like, he feels like that was a great argument for like, man, we'd see some crazy games with a 12-team playoff, and you put some of those games on campuses. Oh my gosh, it would
Let's
would
say
have been incredible.
before this weekend's games, we talked about, man, how cool would it be to go to Rocky Top and see Penn State, Tennessee. Now, I know things are going to get shaken up, and that was, I should preface, that was obviously just a made-up scenario.
Right.
It was done by The Athletic,
Right.
because they have been saying, hey, what would a 12-team playoff look like if it was starting this year?
Right.
Which is awesome. I love that they've been doing that, because I like to see that visually. And it had last week, before this weekend's games, Penn State going to Tennessee,
Right.
which... how awesome would that be? Penn State and Tennessee have played in bowl games. I think Penn State's actually beaten them possibly every
Couple
time they
times.
play them, at least the last few
The
times.
first bowl game I distinctly remember was Penn State beating Tennessee in the Fiesta Bowl.
Yes, in the
That-
mid-90s, right?
Yeah, when they like, it was like a back and forth, and then Penn
I
State
think-
just like had like a
just
10-minute stretch where they
exploded.
just
Yeah,
housed
it's
them.
just exploded.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep, I remember that too. I actually remember watching that at my grandparents' farmhouse. I remember being on the sitting on the ground watching that
We still lived in
game.
Jonestown at the time. I know
So,
that much.
Yeah, I want to say that. Well, what was that? Was that like the '94 bowl season, like '93 going into '94, like before Kerry Collins, or was that after Collins?
I think it was before.
Okay,
think
so I was thinking it was
before.
like it might be the.
Actually, I know it was before. Because, well,
Kerry would have been the quarterback though. Still,
he could have been the quarterback, but I know like it was before like the Rose Bowl stuff. Like, I know that much.
okay, I've got to pull that up
Because we
that's
lived in
true,
Columbia when they went to the Rose Bowl. Because my dad went to the Rose Bowl. I remember that.
which was I think January 2nd, '95, if I remember
I
correctly.
believe so.
Against Oregon, who Oregon could be an opponent for Penn State in this bowl season, depending on how things
Right.
shake out.
Right.
So, yeah. Where were we talking? Oh, yeah. So that's kind of our end of our college stuff.
Right.
We'll talk more about Penn State as maybe things come into focus about who they're going to be playing and when. But overall, I feel like, honestly, I feel like this has been the best season to date since 2016, just because there was so much hype around 17 and 18, and they pooped the bed
Yeah.
by losing to Ohio State, which I get it. They were devastating losses because you were winning or maybe should have even won those games. But then they had an unthinkable loss to Michigan State.
Right.
That they shouldn't have lost either of those games. Like,
No.
I don't care about the rain delay. Like, don't give me excuses.
Right.
You don't lose those games. And they lost both of them.
Yep.
And then last year, they completely imploded after losing Clifford and Mustafa, and they just
Right.
suffered those injuries. But that's also just making excuses, especially when you lose to a team like Illinois in what
9
overtimes. Like,
Right.
you can't do that. So this year they've done everything they should, except beat one of Michigan or Ohio State. They coulda, woulda, shoulda beat Ohio State again this year.
Mhm.
Now they looked awful against Michigan. I know that's why some people will knock 2022 down a peg,
Right.
because they just got blitzed by the Wolverines.
But it's
But-
funny because only because of circumstances. Well, yeah, the difference was they flipped an Ohio State loss/win in 2016 with a Pitt loss,
Right.
right? And they Pitt was nowhere near as good as Ohio State was that year, but they lost that game. It was a young Trace McSorley still. You know, like he made that mistake at the end, throwing deep when they just need. to keep driving down the field.
Yeah.
But they should have beat Pitt and Michigan. They got housed. But like I look back, people like write off that season, but they have that win over Ohio State. However, they could get a good bowl matchup, and that could be a really good win if they could win that bowl matchup. You know, like if they beat a top 10 USC team, or I don't know. And I don't know who they'll end up.
No,
playing,
right.
but-
If they beat Michigan State this week, which they should, it's at home, it's senior day.
Right.
Michigan State's not very good this year, and you got beat up by the Spartans last year.
Yeah.
You should be looking for a little bit of revenge and take back that ugly trophy. Finish the season with double-digit wins before the bowl game, then go to a New Year's Six bowl, which would be the third or fourth New Year's Six bowl in the last 7 years or whatever. That's what you should be playing for as your baseline. Like that's where you want to be every year. You want to be 9-3, 10-2, 11-1 in the New Year's Six bowl until you can make that leap into that elite status that Penn State's been chasing for the last 5-6 years with Coach Franklin. You got to take that next step, and that is the next thing again. But Penn State seems to have the base now that they can continue to be a double-digit win team pushing for the CFP. And
Right.
if the expansion, I mean, you've texted this to me and Adam a few times every time expansion comes up. Media has said multiple times there's like 2 teams that would have greatly benefited from an expanded CFP playoff, and Penn State is always number 1.
Right.
Penn State's been on the outside looking in of what would have been
They've been like 12 or higher numerous times.
right. They would have been in the college football playoff like
Right.
3 more times or something
Right.
like that.
Right.
So Penn State is there. They're not part of that, like 5 or 6 elite teams, but they're in the 12 great teams.
Right.
And it's absurd to me that people don't like Franklin, that don't think the program is in the right. Like we have this conversation. Who are you going to get?
Right.
Who's going to make you better? Because it's a very tough decision to make that improves on what we've been getting. And I know 2020 was rough, but hello,
Right. That was
it was rough for everyone.
And then last year's rough, and yes, they need to be better prepared. Like the Iowa loss, that was tough because you had to they were not ready. They weren't ready when Clifford got hurt, but they were going to blow the doors off of Iowa. They were blowing the doors off of Iowa. But he got hurt.
and Iowa ended up
and
not
then
being very
everything-
good last year.
Right.
Like they ended
Right.
up whittling down the stretch.
Right. So,
But
yeah, it's just. But like I said, win this week against Michigan State. Get to 10-2. Get a good bowl game, and then you have an opportunity to continue to build momentum. Hopefully, they're able to convince some of the guys to stick around. I know some are going to leave, and I can't blame them. But like, hopefully, they can convince enough to stick around, and some more young guys step up and continue to recruit at high levels. That's key because, and this is what you saw last year. Having one out of every like 4 or 5 years having a great recruiting class isn't enough.
right.
You need to have a high level recruiting class 4, 5, 6 years in a row where you can start stacking those, where you've just got so much depth then that you're good to go.
So we nailed a lot about that 93 Penn State team because that's the year that it was. It was the fall of 1993. The game we're talking about was played on New Year's Day, 1994. However, it was not the
Oh,
Fiesta
it was
Bowl.
the Citrus
It
Bowl.
was the Citrus Bowl. But that is the exact game that I remember watching. And I actually was at a game in 1993, I believe it was. So this was the first year Penn State played in the Big Ten.
Okay.
They had been accepted as a conference member, I think, 2 years prior to that. But the first football game as members of the Big Ten was September 4th against Minnesota. I remember that because I don't remember if my dad was at that game, but I eventually ended up with a T-shirt that said first Big Ten conference game, Penn State, Minnesota. I wish I still had that. I had it for a long time. But I went to a game a few weeks later, and Penn State started out the season really strong. They started 5-0, and then what happened? They lost to Michigan and Ohio State back to back. So some things never change. But look at the teams that they were playing.
Right.
A lot of Big Ten teams
Yeah.
in 1993. Rutgers and Maryland,
USC.
USC, yeah. So they played all Big Ten teams to start
Right.
the season in 1993. Minnesota, USC, at Iowa, Rutgers, at Maryland, all wins. They beat Maryland that year 70-7, by the way. Lost to Michigan 21-13 at home. That was at Beaver Stadium. Then went to Columbus and lost 24-6 to number 3 Ohio State. and then wouldn't lose the rest of the year. And the game I was at was this one, November 13th against Illinois. I saw Penn State beat Illinois 28-14, and I remember that it was that game because it was raining a lot. The parking lots were disgusting. The water was running down the concrete stairs in the stadium. I actually believe my grandparents were there at the game. So it was an interesting experience, but that was my first ever game at Penn State, was Penn State's victory over Illinois on November 13th, 1993, win over the Illinois Illini 28-14. And then the game in question that Justin and I were mentioning was January 1st, 1994 against number 6 Tennessee, a 31-13 win. So,
and my first game at Penn State was number 12 Penn State beat Ty Detmer and BYU 33-7 on September 21st, 1991.
oh wow, okay, you got there a couple of years before I did.
Yeah, that was my first game, and I remember it was a night game, late game on ABC. And my dad, we were in Jonestown, and my dad had to preach the next morning, and we didn't get home till like 3 or something in the morning, and he's got church at 8 o'clock. And we lived literally across the street from the church then, but our neighbor across the street had tickets that he couldn't use, and he had given us the tickets. So that was a pretty cool experience.
93 Penn State team was a sign of things to come in 1994, because if you're looking at, I have the roster pulled up, they essentially had all underclassmen except for Rob Holmberg at linebacker and Tyoka Jackson at defensive line. Everyone else was an underclassman that would come back to play the next year.
Yeah, and here you go.
Including the big ones, Collins, Carter, Brady.
Right. Backup
Ingram.
quarterback John Sacca, related to Penn State recruit now, I think Tony Sacca Jr. At St. Joe's Prep, but also John Whitman from Wrightsville across the river from Columbia. I met him. He was in a wedding my dad did. Jeff Hardings, guys, there's big time names there everywhere too.
Kyle Brady of
Bobby Ingram, who's on the staff at Wisconsin right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's just those names stand out. So, yeah, that was a fun little trip down memory lane. That is the first Penn State season I can remember, and first bowl game, and playing Tennessee would have been fun. They played Tennessee more recently than January 1st, 1994, obviously, in another bowl game that I think they won. Was that an Outback Bowl?
I think so.
Like 10 years ago?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, they all start to run together after a time. But yeah, so that was fun. That was good. So let's get back to the NFL now and talk about. Well, do you want to do Week 11, or do you want to talk about these first 10 or 11 games for the teams that maybe are surprising or not?
Let's talk about year to date. And we can include that for the teams we talk about. We can include talking about this week, because I feel like that'll come into play for a couple of them.
Okay.
So, where do you want to start?
It was the 2007 Outback Bowl, by the way.
Go. Nailed it.
Joe Paterno over Phil Fulmer, 20-10. Nailed it. So I don't know. Do you want to start out with the good or the bad? I guess I also need to frame that good or bad in terms of our predictions, or good and bad from their play on the field.
Let's do bad from. Well, why don't we start with predictions? Because then we can always kind of take that a different way. So,
all right. Well, they popped up first, so we'll start there. Let's look at the AFC East.
Okay.
Entering the year, I believe we all picked the Bills because everyone was picking the Bills.
They should be the best team.
And honestly, to me, they've been a disappointment.
Yeah.
They have underachieved.
Oh, absolutely.
They should not be 7-3.
No,
people thought that they would be undefeated right now, maybe 9-1.
So they lost to the Vikings, who we'll get to, but in a game they absolutely should not have lost.
Right.
And then they have 2 division losses already.
To the Dolphins and the Jets.
Right. And both those teams are probably better than I thought they would be. And I thought the Dolphins would be okay. Solid.
We had them fringe wild card.
And I didn't think the Jets would be good, but
no,
they're better than I thought they would be. And I don't think they're great, but they're better than I thought they would be. But like that Dolphins one, that was in Miami too.
It
right?
was, yeah.
And
In week
Josh
2,
Allen
I
was
think.
maybe a little nicked up, or was that the game he got a little nicked up?
No,
I forget.
he got nicked up a little bit.
But,
That was
like-
the one where it was hot.
Yeah.
And they had the butt punt.
winning
and
at Miami or losing at Miami is
I don't think anyone's
right. Right. Especially the Dolphins have shown themselves they're fine. But losing to the Jets, that one could come back, and that loss, how they lost to the Vikings,
Yeah.
giving up that huge play to Justin Jefferson, when you know like that's where they're going, and then to fumble it in your own end zone, like oh my gosh.
So Dolphins are right now better than I thought they would be, because they could just win 2 or 3 more games and they would end up being right where I thought they would
Right.
be.
Well,
Maybe 10 wins. 10-7 is kind of where I was thinking.
That theme is going to come up a couple times for me when I'm talking about like teams could like underachieve in the second half and still end up better than I had them, and Dolphins would be one of those. If they play 500 the rest of the way. I know that you can't technically do that,
yeah.
but like if they go 4-3,
It's
the rest of
11-6.
the way,
That's better than I
11-6
expected.
is
Yeah.
really good, and 11-6 is going to get you in the playoffs.
Well, and the bigger thing to me is their 3 losses are all without Tua. Now, I know he started the Cincinnati game, but
Right.
he got injured and didn't finish that
Right.
game. So they lost to the Bengals. They then lost to the Vikings with Bridgewater, I think, or was the Jets game in between? Actually, the Jets might have been the next week
Yeah,
where
it
they
was Jets for the
they
next.
lost the next week when Bridgewater played like a single offensive snap and
Right.
was hit, and a independent supposedly spotter said he stumbled, and they pulled him out of the game for Skylar Thompson, who hadn't prepared to play in that
Right.
game, and they got blitzed by the Jets in
Right.
the end. And then they
'Cause
lost to
Jets
the,
defense is good.
Right.
Jets defense is good.
and then they lost to the Vikings next week, all without Tua. And since Tua's been back, they've won all
Right.
4 of their games.
And the Vikings aren't terrible.
No, they're
Like,
not.
Right.
But they're
Right. But
we'll get to the
you-
Vikings.
But you think they probably win one of those 3 if Tua's healthy and quarterback for those 3. I think it's safe to say that it's within reason that they win 2 of the 3, like in terms of expectations, and they'd have a shot in all 3. But like, I would absolutely, if he plays healthy those 3 games, they win 2 of those 3. I'd probably say absolutely. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that's absurd to think about. I think they beat the Jets, and I think they beat the Bengals, but the Bengals is tough because Jamar Chase was still healthy at that point. So like that
yeah, I think
so-
I think they.
but even if they're 1-2, you know,
I
like,
think that game's maybe close. It was close to the end, even with Bridgewater.
yes,
But
Thursday night games are so weird, man.
they are. I mean, I don't want to get into woulda, coulda, but Tua is 7-0 as a starter this year. I think he's 12-1 in his last 13 games that he's
Right.
started. He's having a fantastic year. I mean, even better than like I wanted him to take a step in the right direction this year because
Well-
I've always been a Tua supporter.
And like, so my thing is, we talked about this before the game. Like, they need at the end of the year to know whether Tua is their guy or not. And I hope he stays healthy the rest of the year. And I'm not trying to be that guy who's like, if you can stay healthy, but if he can go injury free the rest of the year, I think he's proven that he's like with his play, he's proven, yes, he's the answer right now at quarterback for them, which is huge. Like that, because if he wasn't, then it becomes a whole thing of what are they going to have to do? You know what I mean? Like, because you've got a team that's kind of built for now. You need to make it work. So I feel like he is. He certainly played well enough to earn that spot. He's playing at an MVP conversation level of quarterback.
Yeah, he's
and
in the
that's-
top 5, maybe top 3 conversation
Right.
because quarterbacks are always going to be given the benefit of the doubt there.
Right.
The Miami was on a bye this week, so no game for them.
And then
They have a must-win, cannot lose game against Houston.
hosting Houston too.
In
Houston.
Miami.
Right.
Before they have a 3-game road trip
Right.
against 3
And-
contenders.
Right. And I think that could be the spot where Tua really maybe has a chance to become the odds-on favorite to win MVP at
If
that point.
they
like,
wanna-
depending on how things go.
If they want to be considered real Super Bowl contenders, they have to, at a minimum, go 2-2 in the next 4.
Yeah.
Because the Texans should be a slam dunk win. Coming off a
Right.
bye, hosting them, they're the worst team in the league. You have to win that game. I mean, I want them to win more than one of three against San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Buffalo.
Yeah, but with all three on the road, like that's okay. It's okay if they don't, especially if that other one was at the Bills. Like if they could manage to win at the Bills, that would be huge. Now I know you don't get to pick which ones, but
Yeah.
like, you know,
If you had to say
losing to the Niners at San Francisco, well, obviously you want to win them all. Like okay,
right,
and the Chargers, depending on how tonight goes, they might and the games between now and then over the next month, they could be down and kind of out of it. That one might not hurt them either. But the Buffalo one, Buffalo's still going to be in it. They're going to be fighting for the division in theory. So, like, yeah.
so it could be a real rough.
And then your boy Aaron Rodgers.
I was gonna say it could be a real rough birthday, Christmas, and New Year's for me, as they could play the Bills on my birthday in Buffalo. Maybe there'll be 6 feet of snow again, and they'll have to move the game to Detroit. Then host the Packers. So another
Merry
team
Christmas,
that I
girls.
hate.
Get in the car. We're
I-
going to Detroit.
I hate the Bills. I hate the Packers only because of Aaron Rodgers. Like if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't care.
That's not true. Because if Brett Favre came out of retirement and played for the Packers, you would.
I hate all Packer quarterbacks in the last 30 years.
What about Doug Pearson?
And you know how much I dislike the Patriots. And they play them in New England on New Year's Day.
Was watching the Jets and Patriots go 3-3 battle where neither offense looked competent. Was part of you like
the Jets gained 2 yards in the second half.
was part of you like you guys deserve this? You deserve each other.
Oh man. And that hopefully Miami and Tua can get their revenge against the Jets.
Well,
They
they
next
could,
weekend in
depending on how
January.
they do. Like if they were to go, if they were to win a couple on the front end of the remaining schedule, if they were to win a few more of the toss-ups, that game January 7th or 8th might not mean anything.
True. If they play well enough, it might
Right.
not.
Meaningless games can be bad. Meaningless games can be good.
Can be
Like,
very good. Yeah. All right.
Imagine
So,
winning at New England to be able to like kind of lock up your position, not have to play on the 7th or 8th.
so Dolphins overachieving, Bills push at best, if not slightly
Yeah,
underachieving.
they've got time to turn it around.
Sure.
Like,
Right. There's 7 games to play.
but they've lost some games they shouldn't have lost.
Patriots, I'd say they're about where I expected them to be.
Yeah,
Kind of
sneaky.
like I don't want to play them, but you probably should beat them.
If you're
I'm
if
looking
your
at
team,
that from a Miami
right,
perspective.
if you're
but-
a playoff team, they're a team you need to be able to beat. However, the Patriots are winning the games they should win, and the defense is rounding into form. Offense is weird. It's almost like they don't have an offensive coordinator. Wait, they don't have
don't.
an offensive coordinator.
The Jets, though, are absolutely overachieving.
And Zach Wilson looks bad. They had more punts than completions today.
Right. They're 6-4 despite the quarterback situation, just because their defense has gotten really good really
Well, and
fast.
I think Robert Saleh.
Well, we said I hated that he got the job there
know.
because I thought they was
I
going
know.
to turn it around, and it took a few years.
But like
Man.
I think he's had it with Zach Wilson. Like,
If they can find a quarterback,
but here's the thing: like the way Zach Wilson played today, like how do you not go to like Joe Flacco? Like the way the defense is playing, how do you not say we're gonna go with Joe Flacco? I mean I know you have to know whether Zach Wilson's your guy or not, but
yeah, that's a tough situation to be in. But for all intents and purposes, they're overachieving.
oh yeah,
So let's move to the AFC North then
Okay.
and look at Baltimore, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, and Cleveland. Baltimore, I feel like kind of right where I thought they would be.
they are, but I'd say they've underachieved a little bit because they've given away.
They've given up
games.
wins against the Bills and the Dolphins, which is
Which
huge because it comes back to
right,
AFC seeding.
and they handed those games away.
Yeah, should have won both of those
Right.
games.
But they're there, played an ugly game today, but they won.
But won, yeah. that's all that
Unlike our
matters.
college football conversation, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it does
You
not
win your
matter.
games. You win your games.
So
yes.
Cincinnati, though, right where I thought they'd be, I think we both thought they would be.
Right.
A cusp on the playoffs,
Solid,
wild
but
card
like
team.
some of the things aren't going their way. Like everything went their way last year.
Right, and it doesn't seem their offensive line has improved enough to
Right.
to make them.
And there were times today where I know it's TJ Watt, but like they're just running through them.
Now they're missing Chase, and I think he may be back this week, possibly.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Hopefully, it's coming up for him. Steelers and Browns, though. Steelers were in that game against the Bengals today, but their offense is tough to watch. I know
Yeah.
they're trying to figure it out with Kenny Pickett, but Najee Harris, despite that awesome leaping touchdown today,
Right.
he looks lost when he's running the ball.
Yes.
He is indecisive. He's running into his own
There
guys.
was a
He can't
play.
find
There
the
was a
hole.
play a few weeks ago against the Eagles when he caught a pass out in the flat and like hesitated when he could have lowered his shoulder and run for the first down. Like the defender's standing on the first down line. So if he meets the guy and just goes down there, it's a first down. And it's Najee Harris against a DB. He's going to fall forward. And he like stuttered, like trying to like juke the guy, and he got tackled a yard short of the first down. Like I feel like that sums up Najee Harris. And today was a, quote unquote a good game for him, but
today wasn't a good game for him.
He's struggling, and I don't know if it's. I think it's a combination of things. I think it's a combination of he was injured to start the year. I think it's a combination of the offensive line isn't that good. I think it's a combination of their passing game isn't that good. They find themselves down in games. Like it's just a bad situation all around. And like as a Steelers fan near and dear to my heart says, like the problem is that like she's like they're competent enough to keep screwing it up by winning too many games. Like now they've only won 3, but like they beat the Saints last week, where that for the time being they had jumped above the Saints. But now they would still be drafting ahead of the Saints. Yeah, darn it. But
so the last thing on the AFC North, today was the Bengals' first win against the AFC North. They had lost to the Steelers in week 1. They lost to the Ravens. Then they lost to the Browns a couple weeks ago, right around Halloween. So they got their first AFC North win. They started 1-3 against the AFC North. Now, the good news, obviously, they still get to play the Browns and Ravens. But here's the Bengals' schedule the rest of the year. They're at Tennessee this coming Sunday. Then
which is a playoff rematch from last year, isn't it?
Yeah, because the Bengals upset them.
Yep.
Then they host the Chiefs, who may be the best team in the NFL.
Playoff
Debatable.
rematch from last year.
Debatable. Then they host Cleveland, who they lost to once already. Then they have to go to Tampa Bay,
who is coming into form.
starting to come together. Then they go to New England on Christmas Eve,
who has one of the best defenses in the league, right? At the moment, like the way they're playing right now.
Before hosting Buffalo and then hosting Baltimore. That is their schedule the rest of the year.
That might be the toughest schedule, which you go to the Super Bowl, you get tough schedules.
It's tough to fathom a more difficult schedule than that.
I can't. Yeah. Oof.
Like, that's rough. Now, that Bills game's on Monday night, too.
So they have a short week going into their last game, too.
Against the Ravens.
Right.
That could possibly determine the AFC North. Probably will determine playoff seeding unless they implode. And
it's hard to imagine it wouldn't have an impact on playoff seeding of some kind.
In some way, yeah. So it's going to be a tough go of it for the Bengals. So that win today against the Steelers was huge for them. That was a game they had to win.
Yeah.
And
road division games are no joke. You win road division games, that's good for you.
All right, so AFC South. This one we swung and missed on. We think. I mean, it's still early, but the Colts have fired their coach, Frank Reich. They have benched Matt Ryan and then reinstated Matt Ryan. Jonathan Taylor's been injured for better parts of the year. The offensive line has looked awful. Shaquille Leonard is once again out. He's on IR with another back injury, done for the season. They've just looked really bad. And the team that we've underestimated now for a few years, they're becoming like my new Saints, I think, is the Tennessee Titans, who just keep winning. They won at Green Bay on Thursday night, which I was surprised. I picked after the Packers came back and beat the Cowboys last week. I thought it was going to click for the Packers.
So did I.
They were hosting the Titans at home.
And a home team on Thursday,
and the Titans went in and were like, nope. You can keep underestimating us, but we're still here. But, and I'm going to keep underestimating them because I'm going to throw shade at them right now. They're not going to win in the playoffs.
Are they the AFC version of the Vikings?
Essentially, I think they are.
Right.
I just, eventually you figure out that Ryan Tannehill is not good enough to win you games. And if anyone shuts down Derrick Henry, what else are you going to do? I know Tennessee has a pretty good defense, but I just don't think there's enough there in Tennessee. So they'll win this division because the Texans are awful. The Jaguars haven't quite put it together. They're better than last year,
right? But
they're still not quite there. And the Colts have been a big disappointment this season.
Right. How about the Texans, though? Big step back. I know maybe not in terms of win totals and stuff, but they had some momentum last year and they fired their coach.
Well, now they got rid of that Weatherby and they're all over the place. Right. They're just bad. They need a lot of help, but they are where we thought. I don't think we thought the Texans were going to be. They're probably worse than we thought they were going to be. Right. We thought they'd be bad, but I don't know if I thought we'd be best
last year. But Which I know, and this is the problem you have. Like, they were bad last year, but the incentive for them is to actually be worse this year than to actually grow and get better. Like, that's how it's set up. So, well, they're doing that.
Yeah,
So
they are. So Tennessee has what, a 3-game lead essentially. I know Colts have that tie, but the Colts haven't had a bye yet. So, for all intents and purposes, the Titans have what, a 3.5-game
Right.
lead. I guess that is how that would work right now.
Now the Colts won last week, and they played tough today.
I thought they were going to win today, which honestly that could have changed a lot for them winning that game. I know it's intra-conference, so it's not as big a deal in terms of tiebreakers and whatnot.
5-1 and having won 2 in a row and like having some momentum. How about this though? They rushed for 45 yards on their opening drive. They rushed for 44 the rest of the game.
It's inexcusable as an owner of Jonathan Taylor. My fantasy roster has been struggling because of
Ndamukong Suh and
Lyndall Joseph.
Lyndall Joseph, they combined for 7 tackles and a sack today. Like, immediate impact. Oh, and you get Jordan Davis back in 2 weeks when they play the Titans. So hopefully you have Ndamukong.
Where is that game?
I'm not sure.
Is it a primetime game?
I have heard there are a number of games that could get flexed for the Eagles over the next coming month. So I don't think
they're good. Is that what we're going with?
We've gone over this. I don't enjoy Eagles primetime games anymore.
Right,
I did
right.
when I was younger.
I
don't anymore. Play at 1:00. That's great.
All right, so let's figure that out. So
At Philadelphia.
Oh yeah, there it is. Sunday the 4th.
Yep.
Noon Central Standard Time. So we'll see if that gets
Talk about
flexed.
a more useless time zone.
Yep. Who cares? It's East or Pacific. There is no in between. What is this nonsense?
This afternoon, my brother-in-law from Colorado, it's like 12:30. It's like, you don't have the games on yet? I'm like, they don't come on for another half hour. He was like, oh. I'm like, yes, yes. Yes.
Speaking of Colorado, Broncos. Are they underachieving?
Sorry, Coach Steve.
Yeah, sorry, Coach Steve. Apologies. Yeah, you can't have everything go your way when you are coaching a dominant high school football team who is 48-3 in their last 51 games, has won back-to-back district championships. Something's got to be going wrong somewhere.
I think he'd take that trade every day.
He sacrificed his Broncos for the better of Wyoming football.
However, a trade he would probably not take right now is trading for Russell Wilson.
Yeah, that one I feel like everyone swung and missed. Honestly, this is unfortunate. He's not listening anymore anyway. But my dad was like, don't like it. He's like, I don't like Russell Wilson. Like, not as a person, just I don't think he's that good of a quarterback. You know, like 5 years ago, I would have just scoffed. But after this year, I'm like, was he right?
Right.
Was he right about that?
Geno Smith kind of looks good. Like, not just confident. Like, he looks kind of
We'll see
good
after
in Seattle.
they had a bye this week, too. So we'll see how he comes out of that. Because they didn't have a great game last week against Tampa Bay.
No.
But the Broncos look awful.
But I give them – here's the thing. I was like, yes, but I'm like, Seattle has to travel from the West Coast to Germany. Like, that's a long way. And
so I thought so, too. And then
did they come from the East Coast?
No, but if you look at it on a spherical map,
how they go, it's
a spherical map. It's barely no difference from Tampa to Germany as it is from Seattle to Germany. Think about that.
That's your problem. You're looking at a spherical map,
right? And it's where the Earth is flat. Everyone knows it's. I was shocked by it too because I was just like, that is so unfair to Seattle. And then when you look at it, the mileage is almost exactly the same.
That's crazy. But I mean, it makes sense.
That's one of those where people now are squinting their eyes and seeing numbers fly, and they're looking at a flat map versus the sphere. I know it's not technically a sphere either. Spare me. So, AFC West was supposed to be the best division in football.
They're not.
They have one good team. They have one great team, maybe a good team, and then 2 bad teams.
Right.
Like the Raiders and Broncos are not good, and they got to play each other today.
So
in which the Broncos absolutely pooped the bed.
Right. I was looking at the potential. So there are many weeks where like you only get like 2 or 3 of these 4 o'clock games, and half the time they're dreadful. there was a chance. So the games today, you had Vikings Cowboys, which before the season people would have picked that as a big game. That's why it was a 425 game. You had, I'm trying to think of the other one. You had Broncos Raiders, which was supposed
starting
to
the
be
year was
a good game. And then what was the other one? That was afternoon game this
a
afternoon.
1 o'clock game.
No, the other 4 o'clock game. There were 3.
Well, Chiefs Chargers is tonight.
Right.
Cowboys Vikings, Broncos Raiders.
I think I was sitting there watching.
Yeah, what was the other one?
But look here. Oh, Bengals Steelers.
Oh yeah, duh.
Right? So like you were looking, that should have been like 3 like big games. Bengals Steelers.
Not as big because Steelers
right,
are struggling, and Bengals didn't have Chase.
Right, but at least it's a divisional game.
And then the
like,
Cowboys blitzed the.
Oh my gosh, that was crazy.
They curb stomped
They did. That was
at
wild.
home. It's like their worst loss in like 50 years or something like that. Ooh, how are we feeling? How are we feeling, Minnesota?
Those NFC East teams have some big wins in Minnesota.
So entering the year, back in August, and even probably when
Yeah.
we did our preview
Yeah.
in May, June, and July, could the AFC could the AFC West have 4 teams make the
So-
playoffs?
So I know the Raiders won today, but again, a team that's worse than last year, and they got rid of their interim coach last year, who the
Bisaccia.
team had rallied around.
Right.
Like,
Go to Josh McDaniels. He's doing a great job.
which now they're so in the hole money wise, they
Well, yeah,
can't get rid of him.
And they have to keep him like next year too. Like
Oh,
they can't-
yeah.
it's not even an out. Like they
No.
could decide after. Like they could go 3-14, and then Josh McDaniels did a great job. He's coming back.
Yeah.
I'm not someone who
How
would
great
fire
would
a
it
coach
be?
after 1 year.
How great would it be
anyway,
though if he's
but-
just like, look, I can't afford to fire him, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Like,
we're stuck.
right.
I'm sorry, I messed up. But there is a possibility that a division does get all 4 teams in, and it's the AFC East,
Yeah.
not the AFC West, unless
No.
things change. And of course, there's 7 games left for most of these teams.
Right.
A lot
We're
can
just
change.
over halfway.
Right.
So like there's still plenty to play, but like the Raiders are bad. The Broncos are bad.
Now, if you told me the Chargers were hanging around,
Oh,
okay,
absolutely.
especially they win tonight, they're 1 game back,
Right,
and they
and-
have a
and-
win over the Chiefs.
And they were in it and almost beat the Chiefs last time they played.
Maybe should have. Wasn't there some
They should
officiating
have.
issues
They should
there?
have one. Yes.
Yeah. So, but honestly, Kansas City's who we thought they were. They're still one of the
Yes.
best teams in the AFC. Chargers maybe a little underachieving.
Yeah.
I thought they'd be a little bit better. I mean, Broncos and Raiders definitely underachieving versus what we thought and what many people thought
Right.
entering the year. So moving over to the NFC East as we wrap up things here, Eagles are overachieving. We thought that they'd be good,
Yes.
fighting with the Cowboys for
Yes.
first in the East,
But,
but at
best
9
record in
and
the
1.
NFL through 11 weeks. No one had that on their bingo card.
But honestly, more surprising to me is the Giants at 7-3.
100%. 100%.
I mean,
If you would have told me that they could have a swing up with Dable, like I'd believe that. I didn't know if I necessarily thought it was going to happen because I'm not a Daniel Jones like believer.
no.
And honestly, the way he played today, maybe
So
or some of that. But like Saquon's having a heck of a year. He's the best player on that team.
Although
Like, isn't it weird that like they could never get Kadarius Toney going, and he went and like, although like it doesn't it fit like his like thing for his career that he went into Andy Reid's offense and Andy Reid got him a touchdown last week.
I hope he goes off tonight. I'm coming for you, Uncle Rich. I need him in a big way.
So it's just the Giants are good. Had a setback today, like lost to the Lions, and it wasn't pretty. But still, really good year for them.
Unfortunately, I think there's a little bit of fool's gold with the Giants. I don't
hope
think
so.
they're that good.
I hope so.
I think they're going to come back down to earth, and maybe today was the turning point for that. I don't have
Chargers are
anything.
beating the Chiefs right now.
I don't have anything against Brian Dable. I wanted him as Miami's coach,
Right.
and I love Saquon. Obviously, I don't think they're as good as their record indicates. I think they are closer to a 500 team. I wouldn't be surprised if they finish the year at about 10-7.
Right.
Now
Well,
that may be good enough for a wild card spot.
perfect example. They're 7-3. So again, if they go 500, the rest of the way,
either 3-4 or 4-3.
right? Even if they go 3-4, they're 10-7,
Right.
Probably right there in the playoff hunt.
I think Dallas is going to leapfrog them. I think Dallas is going to be.
Well, they play on Thursday.
I think Dallas is going to end up being, and they already beat them once.
Right.
Didn't Dallas beat the Giants?
Yes.
And that was in New York. So Dallas gets them on Thanksgiving. I'm excited for that game.
Oh, me.
Are
Yes,
they
I'm
both
excited.
wearing throwbacks? Rather, the Giants wearing their 90s throwbacks, or is that only a home thing?
They should.
I
don't
hope
know
the
if they
Cowboys
will.
are wearing their white throwbacks and the Giants wear
That
their 90s throwbacks.
That
That
would
would be
be
really cool. I hope that happens. That'll be a fun one to watch. I think the Cowboys are going to push the Eagles. I think
Oh,
I
absolutely.
think Dallas is going to beat Philadelphia the next time they play.
in Dallas.
I think Philly still wins the division, though. I think they have too much of a lead. They've given themselves too much of a cushion for them to completely
I
fall
like
off.
that.
I know you do. But even so Philadelphia has 7 games left. Even if they would go 4-3, they're 13-4. Entering the
Right.
year, what would you think about me
Oh
telling you the Eagles
gosh.
will go 13-4?
Exactly. That's what I was saying. Like, if the Eagles play just above, because you almost have to. You don't have to, but if you almost play 500, the rest of the way, they get 13 wins.
Even if they would go under 12-5, entering the year, if you said the Eagles are going 12-5, I think
And-
you'd be happy with
And
that.
13 wins still gives you a shot at the number 1 seed.
Right.
But yeah, 12-5. Like, I would have signed up for that in August. Now again, the last 2 weeks haven't been pretty.
But you're going to have the ebb and flow of the season like that all the time.
Right. And today, ugly game, but you're going into a team that emotionally seems revitalized with the Colts. The Eagles had never won, or I'm trying to think, it was something crazy. It not never, but it had been an incredibly long time. I think since the Medical at the Meadowlands
That was
part
2009? Oh, part 2.
with Deshaun Jackson.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that they had been trailing by double digits going into the fourth quarter and won the game. And they did that today.
Cowboys Eagles is on Christmas Eve.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
At least you have a layup in the second to last week.
Well,
of the
and
season.
you
on New
beat the
Year's
Saints, you make their draft position a little worse,
Yeah.
and then you play the Giants. Hopefully, in a game that doesn't.
you
matter.
haven't played the Giants at all yet.
No, they play them twice in the last 4 weeks.
So this is an interesting schedule for the Eagles.
Yes.
This week, Packers at home.
At home on
Tennessee.
I know we're not fans of the All Blacks for the purpose of blacks, but they're breaking out for the first time ever All Blacks.
Is
including
Green Bay
the
going to wear
helmets.
their white pants with their white jersey?
I don't know. I hope they wear the ones that look like the meat packet or like pants.
So the Packers this Sunday. Titans,
You have to win that game. Like that's a must win.
Titans the week after that.
Titans is a tough one, but that's the week Jordan Davis may come back, which would be huge the week you're playing Tennessee.
Yeah.
You have a rotation of Fletcher Cox, Jordan Davis, Ndamukong Suh, and Linval Joseph in there. I like that in the inside, of the defense.
Then your first game against the Giants in New York on the 11th.
Right. Which
Then
is tough.
going to Chicago
You have to win that
on the
one.
18th. You have to win that game. Then down to Dallas on Saturday,
That's
Christmas
a tough
Eve.
one. Toughest game left on the schedule. In my
That's an
opinion.
interesting one. That game is going to be on while we're at our Christmas Eve party at my aunt and uncle's. That's going to be fantastic. And then week 17, the Saints. Again, that's a must win. That is absolutely. You cannot lose that game because they are
Absolutely.
not good.
And you have them at home. You're not
it's
going to
in
New
Philly,
Orleans.
Yep, on New
Right.
Year's Day, and then you finish up with the Giants. Make that game not
Right,
matter
at home.
Make it
Right.
not matter.
Right, exactly. If you handle your business between now and week 17, that Saints game, that Giants game won't matter. And then where it gets sketchy is what if it matters for the Giants, but it doesn't matter for the Eagles?
Yeah, and then
But,
you got to
but
decide.
in football, more than anything else, you take care of your own guys because it's everyone else's fault. Wouldn't it be ironic for the Giants? Because wasn't it the Giants that were complaining that the Eagles benched all their guys like last year?
Was that last year? No, was it last year? Were the Giants ready to do something last year?
No. Who was it that was complaining? I think it was because they were just awful. No, it couldn't have been the Giants. It must have been 2 years ago.
I feel like
But
the Giants haven't
you
been
know what I'm
relevant
talking
for a
about
while.
when they were just like,
Yeah, well, every year there's a team or a fan base that's upset because teams don't play their guys. But
no, it was 2 years ago. It was the game after Peterson ended up getting fired. Then where we were winning, and we benched our guys like halfway through
the game.
and like it
ended
was
up
just,
losing, and then
right.
Well, we haven't talked about the Commanders, and they're 6-5 again.
I'd say overachieving from my expectations.
Overachieving,
Yeah.
absolutely. So,
However,
the AFC and NFC East, no teams are under or 500 or under.
Right.
All teams have winning records.
right, and both teams have a shot at 4 teams in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Is it likely? No, because you get a lot of those divisional games left yet. But is it possible? Yes, and no one would have ever thought that in the 2 East divisions coming into the season.
Real quickly, because we're running late, but I want to run through these.
Yep.
We'll barely touch on them, but Vikings overachieving, I'd say, record-wise. I
Right.
feel like they're right where I expected them to
Right,
be.
I feel they're as good as I would expect them to be, but the record is a little better.
Starting 8-1, but losing. But the 2 losses are to the 2 best teams they played. They shouldn't have beaten Buffalo last week, but they did. They played Miami without Tua and still only managed to win by 8. I think this team is not as good as their record indicates.
They're 8-2, and their point differential is -2.
But they're the closest to
Yes.
0 in the
Yes.
North, because the next teams are all minus as well in the net points. But how about the Lions winning 3 in a row?
Yeah.
Looking better, beating the Packers the other week, beating the
because
Bears last
it had
week.
gotten to the point where I'm like, oh
Beating the
man,
Giants
all that
today.
momentum they had coming into the season is gone, and I don't know that Campbell survives the season.
Well, so now they've rebounded to be where I thought they would be.
Right.
Because we said I could see them going like 9-7 or 9-8, 8-9, somewhere in that range. Maybe they can get there. Maybe they had that losing streak that didn't help them earlier, but now they've righted it. They've won 3 in a row, and now they get their Thanksgiving game. And what way to say we need to keep this game in Detroit than by winning this week against the Bills?
You'd be okay with
I would
that.
be super excited about that.
Really pulling for the Lions this week, huh?
Packers are underachieving.
Yeah.
4-7. I don't care that they beat the
Unacceptable.
Cowboys last week. They
I
had
do.
to come back
I'm
in
glad they
epic
beat the
fashion,
Cowboys last week. That was fantastic.
but they just lost to the Titans. I mean, I know the Titans are good, but
Right.
Packers should be better.
Packers are bad,
Bears,
which is why the Eagles need to beat them this week.
yes. Which Bears, I feel like are right where I thought that. The
Right.
worst team in the
There's
North.
times where I see Justin Fields, I'm like, oh man, he's really good. And then there's times where
Well,
uncontested throws it off his offensive lineman's helmet today. Like, what are you doing, man?
I feel like the new staff didn't do him justice the first 6 weeks
No,
of the
they
year,
did.
though.
They've
6-7
done
weeks.
much better.
It's been
the
better
last
the last
month.
3-4
Yeah.
games, but they lost the last 2 now. They lost
Yeah.
the Lions and the Falcons.
Right, bad teams.
And
like,
they could have beaten the Dolphins too.
right.
Like that was a shootout, and they lost. They lost 3 out of 4 that they were all in, and they could have possibly won. But so NFC South is just bonkers. The Buccaneers are the best team at 5-5. Now they might be getting it rolling and getting better. I still think they win the division. They're
Yeah, but they're going
underachieving.
to win it by default because the rest of the teams are terrible.
Right, they're
Which we-
underachieving.
Kind of maybe thought. I don't know that we predicted it, but like you could have seen that coming from the beginning of the season.
The Falcons are next at 5-6. They're not a threat to do anything. Same with the Saints at 4-7, and the Panthers at 3-8. Panthers, I think we believe that they would be pretty bad this year, so I'd say that's about where we thought. Saints are under. I thought they'd be a little bit better. I don't think that they were necessarily ever a threat to win the division, but I thought they'd be better than 4-7.
Yeah, I need them to lose and like start tanking,
Honestly, I think the
which
Falcons,
they won't do because they don't own their draft
right,
pick.
so they don't care. But the Falcons, I think they're a little bit better than I thought they would be. I thought they'd be down with the Saints.
They're
I think
definitely,
they
they're
would
definitely
be
better than I thought
flip-flopped.
they would be.
So we'll see how the rest of the season goes. But I mean, Mariota's not doing them any favors on offense as a passing quarterback.
No.
He's helped them be a very good running team.
I mean, they knew it before, but he's not their quarterback. He won't be their quarterback next year.
No.
So
NFC West has also turned upside down because the Seahawks, who I thought would be the worst team in that division,
I thought the Seahawks might be one of the worst teams in football.
are leading that division at 6-4. They're on a bye this week. The 49ers, who play tomorrow night, are 5-4 and could tie for the division lead with a victory. They're underachieving at the moment, but they might be starting to find their
they're
footing.
going to start to find their footing, though.
Honestly, I feel like the Cardinals are right where we thought they'd be.
Yeah, we're not.
We were not sold on them. We did not think they'd be good, and I don't think they are good. But the Rams, how bad are the Rams?
Yeah, I mean it's tough because you can say like whatever you want about those picks the GM did at the parade.
They won.
but they won. Right. And I don't know a single fan that wouldn't take that
Right.
deal every single time.
Right. No, absolutely.
But it has its consequences, and the consequences are now you can't fill out a roster without being injury depleted and like
they could
old
be-
guys off the street.
They could get really bad really quickly and be really bad for a few years.
And the thing is, it's really bad because they don't have any picks. So
Right.
if they're bad, they're not getting like better in the long run.
Stafford might have suffered another concussion today.
Yeah.
So it's bad in Los Angeles. So they better savor that 2021 championship because it could be a while before they're good again. I do think in the end, San Francisco wins this division. I think they overtake
Oh yeah, I
Seattle.
think they do too. But Seattle, this is a plus for them. Like they're doing so much better than I thought they would.
They are. And this unfortunately bumps up Pete Carroll, I think, in a lot of people's minds.
I know.
Makes him look better.
But again, kind of like the early Seahawks with Russell Wilson, like the Seahawks team is kind of fun to watch. Much more fun than they've been for the last like 2 or 3 years. Like they were awful though. They were hard to watch. Like the Broncos the last few years, and maybe that's just how that works.
Yeah, I don't know. There might be some correlation there. I don't know. Well,
Yeah, I don't know.
it's crazy to think because it's not I did not. Denver is the most surprising to me. The Rams are probably right up there with them, but I feel
Yeah.
like the Broncos, because of the expectations, like people are talking about them as unseating the Chiefs and being one of the best teams in the AFC, right up there with Buffalo and Kansas City.
Well,
But-
it's not just that. Hackett has been awful too. Like coaching's been bad. The player you built your franchise around, or now is not playing.
We're
the way he
we're
needs to.
hoping to.
It's
Yeah.
just not good.
It's rough. It's been rough. So, well, it was good to be back on this show. I know we went a little bit long. There's a lot to cover. Obviously, we had to talk soccer because why wouldn't we? Then college football
right.
and the NFL. And just because of the way things are with the schedule, we are not going to be here next week. We're going to take time to be with our family over the Thanksgiving holiday. But we will be back in December then for a few shows in a row on, I guess that would be the 4th, 11th, and the 18th. We'll do 3 in a row there before the holidays really mess things up. I'll talk with Justin. Maybe we'll be able to do something like midweek or on Saturday to not miss 2 weeks in a row because of Christmas and New Year's. But again, we want to be with our friends and family. So we might not be here. Just stay tuned. We love talking football, and we'd love to take emails, calls, tweets, whatever. You can find all that on the slide that was just up a few minutes ago, or just look for Joe Mays and J-Raff or the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. You can find us everywhere, and we appreciate it if you would like and subscribe to all those places. And check the website, joemaysandjraff.com or jamandjrradio.com. But I think that's about it. Anything to say for you, Justin?
I don't think so.
I think I'll give a happy birthday shout out to my Uncle Bob celebrating tomorrow. And we missed a bunch of people in the last 4.5 months. I'm not going to recap that. Sorry, you get missed out in the fall, including my wife. But that's just the way it is sometimes. But we will be back in 2 weeks on Sunday, December 4th to talk about NFL Week 13. And hopefully the Dolphins have continued to win, and I'm still happy about the way the NFL season is going.
Sounds good.
It's been a while since I could say that.
Yeah, let's. I'm excited for Thanksgiving games. Mostly that Giants Cowboys one, not because I want either team to win, but like one of the teams is likely to lose, and
Right.
so that's a good thing for the Eagles.
So yeah, when we're getting to that time of the year, where I can say it's been so long since Miami last won a playoff game. It was December 31st, 2000. So it's been a while. It's been nearly 22 years. So I'm hoping that could end this year. That would be great. That would be great.
You'd be okay with that.
I would be very much okay with that. Just to think that the things in my life that have changed in the time since the Dolphins won a playoff game is what's a list that's too long for me to start describing. It would continue for 2 weeks up until our next show. So, yeah, but that's about it. Sorry for missing the last 4+ months and most of the first half of the NFL season, but Bulldog Hour takes precedence as the Wilson football team is playing their games, and that season is over. And we are back on to pro and college football now, and we'll be back again in 2 weeks. So that's it for us on episode 363 of the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show. Hope everyone has a wonderful Thanksgiving. For Justin Raffoff And Joe Mays, that's me. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Thanks for listening.
That's a wrap on this episode of the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show, brought to you by Mays Sandwich Shop. You can watch each weekly episode live on Facebook, Periscope, or YouTube. Be sure to like, follow, or subscribe to the show on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and Google Play. You can also rate and review us on many of these platforms as well. We'd love to hear from you. Send your email to the Mays Sandwich Shop inbox at joemaysandjraff@gmail.com. The Joe Mays and J-Raff Show is a part of the JMNJR Radio Network, home to other productions such as the Bulldog Hour, Tangents with Friends, and Nat Chats with Dad. Until next time.